Refreshing wild cherry cola meets smooth cream. The treat you deserve. Pepsi Wild Cherry and Cream. Treat yourself.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Three, two, one. Welcome to another Britflix.com podcast. My name is Stuart Wright, and today's guest is Matthew Hope. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Stuart. Good to be here.
We are here to talk about a film that you co-wrote and directed, Empire of Lies, which is, as I understand it, out on the 27th of March, 2026.
That's right.
And we're going to be discussing three films that have impacted everything in your adult life. Does that sound like what you signed up for?
That is it.
Please, can you give me a synopsis as to what Empire of Lies is about?
Yeah, it's about a guy who played by Joseph Millson, who is sort of living off grid, and everybody's sort of labelled him a bit of a weirdo, a conspiracy theorist. And then one day, this sort of ambitious YouTuber comes to try and interview him about his part in the murder of his daughter, and you don't know whether he murdered her or the state murdered her. And it's a kind of Q&A backwards and forwards because it's literally just the two of them talking, asking questions, and that's what it's about.
So what was the kernel of an idea that led you to developing a film that now is Empire of Lies?
Well, it came about because Joe and I had written another script together, and we were trying to get the financing for it. And we thought, it was a small film, about a group of assassins waiting in a house, waiting for a job, and they all eventually turn on one another. And we thought, this is great. We wrote it around the time of COVID. Mm-hmm. We thought this will be easy to get finance for. And it turned out it wasn't easy, and it's still not easy to get finance for. And Joe and I were having this conversation, and we were, very frustrated. And he said, right, the next film we do is going to be me in a field with a gun, living in a caravan. And we both laughed and thought nothing of it. And then Joe went off to make Signs of Life, this, directorial debut, which is a great film for anyone who hasn't seen it. And he kept on at me saying, we should go and make a film. Why don't you go make a really low budget film? And I kept resisting it for about a year. I kept resisting it because I said to him, it'd be like my first film. I'd be wrapping cables at 2 a.m. in the rain. And I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And then eventually I said, okay, I'm going to do it. And I said, you remember that idea that you had about this guy living? And we sort of joked about it. And that's kind of where it came from. But it also came from a lot of the ideas in the film are things I wanted to write about for a long time. Yeah. And I just didn't know how I could put them into a film where, how it would come about, what shape it would take.
What kind of ideas were the ones you wanted to write about? What are those?
The conspiracy stuff mainly.
Okay.
A lot of that conspiracy stuff. And I wanted to write about that type of person, about Dave, the character that Joe plays. I'd met people like that. It was various ideas. I mean, it's funny because my wife and I have this joke. When she read the script, she went, it's just a conversation between you and me, isn't it? And that's,
should I be troubled by that? I've seen the film.
Yeah. No. It was like, I come to her with stuff and say, have you seen da 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 da? And she'll like, shut up, just go away. So, and then I wrote the first draft. I sent it to Joe, and then he rewrote it. I rewrote it. We just passed it backwards and forwards. But we were ready. And it was quite straightforward in that sense.
Joe Millson, you mentioned already, who stars in it and co-wrote it with you, was on the podcast in 2013 talking about the dead India. And I'm pretty sure he didn't have a Southwest accent when I spoke to him. So why was it important to the character of Dave that he had such a strong, recognisable accent?
Well, that's Joe's original accent.
Is it really?
Yeah, that's his original accent.
The sneaky bugger.
Yeah. And when he came to me, he said, "I'm going to do this accent," and I said, "Ooh, hang on a minute. This could go one of two ways, but it actually really sort of works for the character." That all came out of him.
Okay,
that was purely his idea, and then he showed me, demonstrated what he was going to do, and I said, "Okay, that's fine. That's going to work." You know what it's like with accents; it can go.
No, exactly. No, and that's what it was. It's very convincing. It's not. Well, obviously, if it's his original accent, it would be. But it's in terms of the performance, you definitely don't feel like you're getting a performance of an accent. You just got a man with an accent performing, so to speak.
Yeah. And also, it was somebody I wanted to write about, and I think Joe, he wanted to play it in a certain way. The interesting thing about this when we were writing it was, I was coming at it from one perspective and he was coming at it from another perspective, and somewhere we met in the middle. So it was, there was never any sort of conflict in that idea, but it was interesting to me to go, oh, right, okay, that's how he's seeing it. So it sort of nudged me in a certain direction and I nudged him in a certain direction. Because he likes to say that I wrote all the conspiracy stuff, but he sort of tempered it. So it wouldn't be crazy. So I was like, fair enough.
Now, I'm not going to ask you for this because obviously this would be a spoiler, but there is a whopping big reveal in the course of watching your film. And there are only two characters in a very limited location. We're in and out of an RV vehicle that's parked in an isolated farmer's field. So essentially, it's a single location, as you've already sort of intimated. What dominated your discussions with your cinematographer, Elliot Millson, about the look and feel of what you wanted to achieve with Empire Lies? Because I think what you have done really well with that idea of the limited locations is it's still cinematic as a piece of work.
Yeah. I knew that's what we would be up against. I mean, it's funny, when my brother found us the RV, because I was online, emailing people saying, "Can we borrow your van for a couple of weeks?" And I couldn't get anywhere. And my brother said, "Oh, I know this couple. They have this amazing RV," and he sent me a picture of it. And he said, "Well, probably loan it out to you," and they did, and it was brilliant. But I remember going into it the first time with Elliot, and I was like horrified, but there weren't any straight lines in it. And I think, oh God, where are we going to put the camera to make this interesting? Because everywhere you point it, there's some weird cupboard or some weird angle. But we did. I think we did a really good job of making it interesting. But originally the look came out of Silence of the Lambs, to have that sort of grounded, there's nothing flashy about the film. And also because Natalie, who plays the young YouTuber, she talks into camera, and it's something I'd been planning to do for a while. My previous two films, there's one scene in each film where they look into the camera, and I wanted to do a whole film like that. And I thought, this is perfect because it's his point of view of her, and it's a Q&A. Yeah. So we were, and it's funny because Elliot's, what is he? He's 20. I think he was 21 when he shot it. He's probably like 23 now. So he hadn't seen Silence because I forget that. I'm 50. So I was 15 when it came out, and so I said to him, "Well, watch this film." So he watched it, and I said, "This is what I want. This is that type of style." And also, it's just really in the how you stage it, and also when you're outside, it does look more cinematic because it's a vast open field. So you have all of that. You have kind of nature giving you an extra character or an extra lift. Yeah,
you've got that production values. You've got production values beyond what you could create yourself, isn't it? I suppose. Yeah, exactly.
And then the RV became a character in and of itself because it's an American vehicle. It's massive. It's it has character.
Yeah.
We just tried to use that, and then it was just really working out. I shot listed everything and sort of broke it down in how we were going to do it. Each individual shot, and then when you as all these things happen, when you come to shoot it, if you have a plan, then if something pops up that's better, then you go, well, I still know where I'm going, but this idea is better if we do it like this. And also, and then Joe was very, very good at, with the dinosaur scene. we had it worked out one way, and he said, that won't work. And between me, him, and Elliot, we figured it out. So it was a pure kind of collaboration.
Got you. Now, without giving away too many spoilers, and this is obviously I give the floor to you, so I don't give the spoilers. What do you remember being the main storytelling challenges, pulling the screenplay together?
That twist,
really, like so when to hit the twist, as it were.
Yeah, and also just how it would work, and not to feel like it was a cheap gag. It wasn't done deliberately. It's funny because when people watch it, some people get it immediately, and then others they don't get it at all.
Yeah.
And so it was not to kind of you when it happens, you automatically then review the whole film in that context.
Yeah. But
hopefully, what people will take from it is that if watching it a second time, it will be just as interesting, even though they will know the reveal. Because then you see the mechanics of it, and you see it's really about this guy. And
because right from if I go back to the beginning, and when Dave first spots the person coming towards him, he's very much just no, and obviously that makes complete sense in terms of where we end because of what we understand about Dave by the end of the film. So with that in mind, then I imagine the edit was crucial in the kind of final rewrite of this process of getting to the reveal. So what again, if you need to give spoilers, ignore it. But is there a way of describing how sort of new story ideas revealed themselves when you were in the edit with Emma Gaffney?
No, but it's really in the way that she cut it.
Okay.
So the reveal, the actual edit of the reveal, she did herself. I mean, because I did something with Emma that I never normally do. Normally, I'll sit with her and edit it from the start. And a friend of mine was saying, well, this time, why don't you give her, why don't you just let her cut it on her own?
Yeah.
I thought, okay, great. So I did. And it's the only time you can kind of see your film not as a film that you made. So when she put this edit in, I was like really blown away by it. I was like, oh, this is amazing. But it's really, I think a lot of it comes down to her cutting. She's really good at cutting dialogue.
Rightio.
She's got bags of experience and was, trained under some amazing editors. So I give kind of credit to her in that sense. Because we didn't cut anything out of the script. It was only where the edits were made. I mean, I go through every take and I write extensive notes and I say, this is what I want. Here's what I want, but it's over to you. So you cut something, let me have a look at it. And then we go backwards and forwards. So I think it was really in the, how we cut it. One interesting thing though, that came out, I think it came out more in the shooting is sometimes when Natalie is talking into the camera and Joe will sort of say something confrontational and it jumps to like a side-on angle, like a profile. And it's sort of to jump the audience out of his POV and back into kind of the story. And originally that was supposed to work for Joe, but it wasn't, for whatever reason, it wasn't working for him. So we switched it to Natalie. And it was like, oh, this is great. So sometimes you'll see the edit, it sort of jumps into, it will be on her, but then cuts into another shot when she's talking into the camera. And it's funny how these things work out. What I was saying a minute ago about how, you have a plan, but then on the day something emerges and you go, oh, that's a much better idea. And you go with that.
I guess that is the if there's one shining positive of making a film independently is you had the freedom to make those changes. There was nobody signed up to the idea of what you're going to shoot that day. You could just respond to the moment as much as you could do what you planned to do.
Yeah, and in that sense, I wouldn't say it's the easiest thing because they're all hard, but it was the least pressurized film I've ever made. I mean, literally we made it with 2 actors. I think there was like 8 crew.
Okay.
And I was, to my comment earlier, I was wrapping cables at 2 a.m. in the rain, and it's fine. And, that was really, the challenge was just the weather. And I think you either have good weather karma as a film director or you don't. And I do, fortunately. I've always had good weather karma. And so you wait for the rain to stop because we're in the British countryside. And then you run out for 20 minutes and you shoot what you can, then you go back inside and, that's what we did for most of it. And you get it. But because it was a single location and there was so few of us, it just meant we just got on with it and we did it. And, and I always say this to people, if you have a great script and great actors, that's 90% of the job is done.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And then you just have to make the film. And that's what we did.
Fantastic. Well, look, congratulations, Emperor Lives. Should we remind people, when can they see the movie and how?
It's going to be released in select cinemas on March the 27th. And then on the 13th of April, it'll be on Amazon and various platforms, Apple, places like that.
Brilliant. Okay, well, I'll put links in the show notes for the online stuff. And it just gives me to say thank you for that. And let us move into 3 films that have impacted everything in your adult life. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
The rules are simple. You've given me 3 film titles. I'm going to give you 5 minutes per film to talk about what it is about those films that makes them so memorable. And every time we hear this sound, your laugh tells me you can hear that. Every time we hear that sound, that means 5 minutes are up and we stop talking about that film and move on to the next title. Obviously, I'm not a tyrant and I will let you finish your thought if it sounds like you're just about to say something that could be quite interesting about the film, but it's completely up to you. You may want to go, no, I will never reveal what it was that I was going to say. I will leave the ball in your court there. So, are you ready to start with the first movie?
Yep.
Brilliant. Okay, clock's ticking. 1976 is Rocky, directed by John Alverson, written and starring a little-known back then Sylvester Stallone. It's the story of a small-time Philadelphia boxer who gets the rarest of chances to fight for the world heavyweight champion of the world. But winning or just going the distance is as important to him as striving for his own self-respect. Fun fact, and I do love this, I mean, as a screenwriter myself, it's obviously the dream ticket, and I think I wouldn't have been so principled. After producers Irvin Winkler and Robert Chartoff became interested in the script, they offered Stallone $350,000. He had $106 in the bank and no car, and wouldn't sell it to them unless they agreed for him to star in it. History's been very kind to that decision, but it could have gone a lot of other ways, I imagine. And Sylvester Stallone and Carl Weathers, his opponent in the boxing ring, suffered injuries during the shooting of the final fight. Weirdly, Stallone suffered bruised ribs and Weathers suffered a damaged nose. The opposite injuries of what their characters had in the film, which is kind of neat. So tell me, Matthew, why is Rocky such an important film for you in terms of impact on memories it holds for you?
Well, I'll just quickly give you another fun fact, actually, on Rocky. You know, they're making a film about the making of Rocky now.
No?
Yeah. They're making, and Toby Kebbell, who was in my second film, The Veteran, he's going to play, I think it's Robert Chartoff he's playing.
Oh, amazing.
So I was like, when I saw that, I thought, that is amazing.
So they're doing like an equivalent of what they did with The Offer, talking about the making of the Mafia. They're doing a drama about how this film got made.
Yeah, what's his name? Bobby Farrelly, the Farrelly brothers, Green Book, and he's making it.
Amazing.
And, and I was like, wow, Toby's in it, and he's So for me, this film. So this is the film that got me started. So when I was a kid, my uncle used to run a video repair shop.
Okay.
And he had hundreds of films at his house, and they're always so. Whenever we went round there. This was before we even had a video. I mean, I think it was a Betamax as well for, anybody who's old enough to remember those.
I am, sadly.
So he would often put on films. And for whatever reason, I don't know what it was, but it was probably the boxing. It was probably the music. That was the thing. I thought to myself, I was 8 years old. I thought, well, I don't know what this is, but I want to be involved in this thing called film.
Okay.
I could never understand why he lost the fight. It was only when I got older that it was like about going the distance, not winning the fight. Yeah. But that kept me coming back, and I kept watching it, and I love that film. It's that holds. I mean, that is my childhood.
Okay.
But I also like it. I like it for this idea that it is very American in that sense. Is that something comes from nothing, like you were saying in your introduction that. Here's a film, here's a guy, nobody knows who he is. He's written this script. He holds on to the script. They eventually let him be in the script. And he goes off and, the rest is history. And I think that always sort of stuck with me. I thought, well, if that guy can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
For throughout especially my childhood and my teenhood, people would be, oh, you know, who do you know in the film business? You're never going to get into the, you know, the usual. And I didn't know anybody. But I had very, very supportive parents. You know, I'm sort of lucky to have those parents, because they just said, well, you've just got to keep going. You know, somehow you'll find a way. You've got to keep making stuff. You've got to keep writing stuff. And yeah, that's why it has a special place for me.
So if you think of your 8-year-old self watching it and now watching it as you've gone through time, how has the watching of Rocky changed over those years for you? What do you see now that you obviously couldn't have seen at 8 years old?
I see the filmmaking. I see the process. You know, I know all about how they put it together, and you know, the hardship, and you know, running around from the union, running around, you know, people chasing them for permits, that kind of thing. I see that, but it hasn't lost any of its magic.
No,
that's the thing. That film still holds up. It's still, you know, it speaks to me in exactly the same way as when I was 8 that it does now. You know, I still watch clips. I still watch that fight on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know, every month I'll just put it on again. You know, like I like to watch clips of films, and that's one I always sort of return to. So you know, you know, and I now understand that the film is about going the distance, not winning the fight. But just, you know, where America was in that year, and you know, in the 70s, and growing up in the 70s and 80s, and kind of, you know, being a big fan of Stallone when I was a kid, and you know, where he went to after that. So I think it's more.
There's our 5 minutes, sir. Moving swiftly along to your second choice, we jump into 1991 for JFK, written and directed by Oliver Stone, starring Kevin Costner and Gary Oldman, who I've since found out in a previous show, the role he plays in JFK is one of his favourite performances as an actor. It tells the story of New Orleans District Attorney Jim Garrison, who tries to prove there's more to Kennedy assassination than the official story. Fun fact, after reading Garrison's book, Oliver Stone immediately bought the rights with his own money. And I didn't know this, when Oliver Stone showed JFK to Congress in 91, it led to the 1992 Assassination Disclosure Act, which we as the public saw in effect in 2017 when Trump administration released a great part of documents known as the JFK files.
Yes. Okay. Where do I begin with this one?
Yes. So tell me, what's the impact and memories this holds for you?
So I was 15 at the time. You know, I just started making sort of short films with my friends, and you know, on video cameras. I was, for whatever reason, I can't remember why, but I had always been a big Oliver Stone fan. You know, probably from Platoon, maybe, you know, because he wrote Conan the Barbarian, something like that. And I knew that this film was coming up, and I was at school, and I remember another class, they were watching a documentary that Stone also used, called, I think, The Day the Dream Died. And it was a Channel 4 documentary about the assassination, about the conspiracy of it. I remember seeing that at the time and sort of just going, well, I don't know, what is this thing? What is this JFK? I didn't know who JFK was. I only found out through the film. But I think it had a big impact because it was, for two reasons. I think one, because the film is just so good. There's so much information in that film. It's quite extraordinary how he gets so much information in that film. It's not boring. It's not, you're not overwhelmed by information. You know, and you come out of it thinking, well, clearly there was a conspiracy. I mean, I spent 30 years reading all those books, so I'm still interested in that case. But also, you know, film, it can change things. That's what I learned from that film, that it can, because when that came out, there was, like you said in your intro, there was such an uproar from the public that the Congress was so overwhelmed by letters and phone calls by people going, well, why are the files closed off for 75 years? What's that about? You know, if Oswald did it, then why are they hiding? You know, and that passed the JFK Records Act. You know, and his subsequent documentary, JFK Revisited, was based on those records. And I think I remember reading, because he went through, you know, I mean, he was attacked from, you know, every angle he was attacked. But it showed sheer resilience. They just stood behind the film and said, well, no, These are all the things that we've discovered. You know, I mean, he had like tons of researchers. He had all the best researchers at that time working on the film. And the thing that always sort of bugs me about the JFK case is that everybody's an expert, but nobody's read anything. You know, everybody knows about the case. And it's like, but nobody's read anything, and everybody has an idea. And you know, but until you actually do read the good books, I mean, there are so many out there and so many bad ones, but there are some really, really good.
Can I ask you then, given you've done so much reading, what's your wildest conspiracy theory you've come across in your travels?
On the JFK case?
On JFK, yeah. What's the wildest thing you've come across?
In terms of that I believe, or that's just wild?
You tell me. You tell me. I'm not going to judge you.
There are loads. There are loads. What's the wildest one? Well, the most idiotic one I've heard is that the driver of the limo turned around and shot him in the head. You know, I mean, it's just idiotic.
Yeah.
But you know, I think if you do enough reading, you can kind of figure out who it was and how you know, how they did it and who are the people behind it. It's kind of obvious now, even though you're never going to know who the shooters were or anything like that. No, none of this stuff is written down. There's nothing in those documents that you're going to find that's written down.
Okay.
We're kind of getting drawn away from the film part of this, but it's just.
So in that sense, so going back to the film, then having then put all this work in, what does the film get so right then? Even looking back now, 30 odd years later, what does the film get right for you? Well,
I think the one of the big things was there's it.
Oh, we shall never know, Matthew. We shall never know.
No.
Right then, we're going to take a swift tonal change for your final film. 1985's Commando, written by Steven D'Souza, a writer who I didn't know till looking into this has earned studios over $2 billion in box office receipts with his writing, which is an amazing feat. Directed by Mark Lester, who not only did Class of '84, I didn't realise he did Class of 1999 as well, which was not quite as celebrated as the first one in exploitation film terms. Obviously not. I don't think the Academy were worried about Class of '84. It's an action-packed, uber-violent story of a retired Special Forces colonel, played by Arnie Schwarzenegger, trying to save his daughter, who has been kidnapped by a former subordinate of Arnie's. Fun fact, and I'd forgotten this, Vernon Wells, who plays Wes, the Mohawk leather-clad gang leader in Mad Max 2, described his look in Commando as Freddie Mercury on steroids. And Arnold Schwarzenegger performed his own stunts, as producers found it difficult to find a stunt double to fit the bodybuilder's frame. And he suffered a dislocated shoulder and several stitches during the shoot. But tell me, Matthew, why is Commando such an important film to you? Why does it have impact?
I remember seeing Vernon Wells when he turned up in Commando, thinking that's the guy from Mad Max. Why does he's scary in Mad Max? He just looks like a fat dude. And I was 11 years old, and I came out in '85. But you know, because of being 11 and then the film being an 18, I couldn't go to the cinema and see it. So I had to wait. What was it? 6 months? I think they had before you could see it. And I mean, I'm an 11-year-old boy, and he, you know, what's not to like about Arnie? He's got massive muscles. He runs around with a machine gun, you know, obliterating everybody. I mean, it is absurd. It is. It's. I
think this is probably one of the first films I saw when I sort of recognised the idea of, does nobody ever run out of bullets?
No one ever runs out of bullets. And if you look at particularly the veteran and all the Devil's Men, you can count the bullets in that film. You can count every single shot. And by that time, I was, you know, very into Michael Mann and his style of filmmaking and his style of action, so that you see the magazine changes. However, Commando, it's just absurd. It's just so brilliant. There's hardly any plot. There's zero character development. It's just one fight after another. I mean, it's hilarious. I love it. I mean, especially when I was a kid, I just watched it endlessly, you know, and I was, you know, again, it was that sort of same thing about Rocky. You know, I didn't care about any of it. I just loved the action. The vibrancy of it, just the fact that he never ran out of bullets, that no one ever shot him. You know, it was like Stormtrooper aiming, isn't it? You know, and he goes on to that, and it had probably the single best getting tooled up scene ever. You know, like when he's putting on the guns and the the grenades and stuff. And you half expect him to sort of fall over because he's so loaded up with weapons.
Yeah.
But when you're a kid, that's like, this is the most amazing thing ever. I mean, I showed it to my wife a few years ago, and she was just like, this is absurd. Why do you like this? And I was like, it's just reliving my childhood, but it's great. I'm not a huge Mark Lester fan, but it feels exploitational.
Yeah.
It has that kind of vibe. It has that sort of, he brought that kind of vibe to it, even though it was like a fairly decent sized Hollywood movie.
Yeah. Because this is post Terminator, isn't it? So he's
exactly. Yeah.
He's a big star by now. Yeah,
it's like, yeah, and it's just it just has all those elements.
It is. I mean, I watched it myself in the same open mouth look on my face watching it as a kid, but now you can see it as that kind of Reaganite, we can beat the world, just tool us up properly. It doesn't take much to get beneath that subtext, does it? That this was America projecting to the world. It could just blow it up.
Yeah. But when you're 11, you don't think about it. You just think, he's just taking on everybody. This is the guy that everybody wants to be.
Yeah.
Like that bit where he swings, he's in the mall and he swings on that, whatever that balloon thing he's holding. It's just like the most amazing thing I'd ever seen.
do you have a favorite scene in the film as that you remember from being a kid?
Yeah, that getting tooled up.
Yeah.
That is my favorite. That scene and the ending, just the fact that he goes around just annihilating everybody. He has that like M60, and you can see it from shot to shot. He's like mows down about 50 guys, and then all the bullets go through, and then in the next shot they're all back again. It's so brilliant. You have to watch. If you don't watch it like that, especially as an adult, if you don't watch it like that, then you're just not going to have a good time with it. So it's one of those things you have to buy into it.
Indeed. Well, that's perfect timing there. 5 minutes are up. That brings us to the end of 3 films that have impacted everything in your adult life. Thank you for sharing those movies. Let us remind people, how and when can they see Empire of Lies?
It'll be in select cinemas on March the 27th, and it'll be on digital the 13th of April.
Fantastic. Well, look, it just gives me to say thank you very much for giving us the time on the Britflix podcast.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. It was great fun.
Do remember to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, follow on Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts for more movies that impacted your life. And if you want to, I'd love to know what your favourite movies are, what your fondest movie memories are. So please share your favourite movies that impacted your life on Twitter. Look for @LeightonRocks, and you can always leave me a review, 5-star preferably. And in your review, tell us which 3 films impacted your life. Best ones get read out on the podcast.
Welcome to The Lavender Dungeon, a new comedy fiction D&D podcast from RGRP Productions. Our first story arc is called The Secrets of the Succubus.
The treasure of famed pirate Sidney the Succubus Morley has been lost for centuries, and 4 treasure hunters are on a mission to find it.
Oh, we're close. I can feel it in my motherboard.
You said that 4 hours ago.
Hey, my circuits are never wrong.
By collecting pieces of an ancient map and solving the riddles that lie within, they can unlock the chest that holds a fortune beyond their wildest dreams.
This isn't just treasure we're after, it's power, glory, it's fame.
But we are getting the treasure too, right?
Yes, obviously.
They must journey across the lands and sail the treacherous seas, endure dank dungeons, murky swamps, and thick jungles.
My robot. Wait, come back. Pull me out of the mud, I'm stuck.
I told you before we left, you can't adventure in stilettos. And Kitten starts flossing.
Oh my god,
Just help me out.
All while avoiding devious traps and battling monstrous creatures guarding secrets of the lost treasure.
That's a bigger beast than I expected.
My birdie. Didn't think it'd be easy, did you?
The crew must be careful who they trust, for they aren't the only ones searching for the succubus chest.
We should be safe now.
This is getting to be ridiculous, right?
Oh no, did you hear that, chat?
Prepare for a journey like no other. Find the map and face what comes. The hunt for treasure begins now.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.